We're just the live. Yep, we're good to go. Live streaming now. So the recommendations which are before us, 1 through to 8 on page 221, I'll move those. So I have a seconder. Councillor Edwards, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, moving now. Probably a good time to take lunch.
Yeah.
Great. So it's 12:25. How long would everyone like? 1 o'clock sound about right? Yep, great. Okay, so we'll adjourn. Thank you, the team from Wellington Water as well. Appreciate you being available. Okay, so we'll adjourn until 1 p.m. Thanks. Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll get back underway. So what we will do now is go back to page 7 of our agenda and item 5A, which is progressing decisions on our annual plan. So, Jenny, did you want to make any other comments? No? Okay. So what we'll do now is go through the different tables. Actually, I should say, just note the summary of the feedback in section J of the report. So I know you would have had a chance to see that summary. But what we'll do now is go through table 2, which is key updates to unavoidable costs, and this is on page 13. Now, on these ones, we only have 2 of them, so basically take both of them at the same time. Is there any queries to those? No? Okay, so we are happy. And obviously, as we do, we'll get a sense of where the room's at, but we'll pull everything together for a final list of recommendations for a vote at the end. So those are endorsed. What's that?
Reluctantly endorsed.
Reluctantly endorsed.
Yeah,
yes.
Another government unfunded mandate.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so now we'll go to table 3, which is other budget matters requiring council decisions, and this is on page 14. Now, with this one, we have a total of 8. Obviously, we've already made decisions on some of them. First up is Te Nānai Pool staffing increase. Any questions for Ian, who is here? Feel free to come forward, Ian. Is there any questions? I'll tell you, there is a question. I was going to say, the second you sit down, there'll be no questions. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you for the report. And taking my grandkids there when the hydroslide isn't operating twice, and they certainly weren't pleased. But yeah, we're having these staffing issues, as I understand it, when we currently have staff from Huia Pool helping us out at Nainai. So it doesn't bode well for the future when Huia reopens, or am I misinterpreting something?
Through the chair. What we've done to facilitate the opening of Nainai and the Huia, the refurb that's been done there, is we've split the staff between the 2 pools, and we've recruited. Now we've got a recruiting plan going through to the end of the year, starting in the next couple of months, which is backfilling both places and stepping towards the Huia Pool when we go there.
Is that?
Councillor Edwards, I think you were asking a slightly different question. Were you saying, given that we've got Huia there and that increases is there, what does that mean for when Huia reopens? Is there another budget increase being built? And that's the question I'm hearing that you're asking. Is that right? Ian or Andrea, can you help with that? I think there was actually some issue with this around the not just the current operations, but we may have not quite got the right baseline at the start. But Andrew and Ian, I think you can help.
Essentially, we've budgeted for what we need, for what we've got open across the network, but we know that with Te Nānai, now that we are in the pool, we know that what we require there will always be a little bit more than what we had budgeted for. So the budget will flex as the pools reopen, and we've already budgeted for that, but we know that we'll need this extra allowance at Te Nānai.
So the baseline is there to cover both, but this is just an addition on reflection of the operation of Te Nānai. Okay. Yep. Okay. If there's no questions, are we happy with that? Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it. And of course, stay there. Huia Pool renewal capital budget increase and deferral. Any questions on that? No? Very good. Thank you. We've done development contributions. Wellington Water Advice, we have completed. Water Services Transition Funding. Yep. Ava Footbridge, done. Government increase in speed review. And regulatory services budget changes. Any questions on that? No? Okay, happy with that. Moving through to table 4. Now, this is around carryovers and phasing changes of budgets. So I'm not going to individually go through all of these because there's quite a few. Is there any questions for members, from members on any of them? Take it by exception. Councillor Dyer.
Yeah, my question's on the development stimulus package carryover. I feel like every year we're carrying this over. Is this all to do with the DC's remits that were forever ago? Just a bit more information about this continued thing.
Yeah, so when the old stimuli were given, it's about when they become due. So it's a matter of accounting that you're going to have to do that until we get to the end of when the last ones were there. So it's nothing new. It's something that you've done since you put in place those stimuli.
Councillor Brown, I think, did you have a question you may have raised with me around Wise Park artificial services, just around budget timeframes and timelines?
Yes, sorry, I was just looking at something else. Yes, I did, around the artificial turf for Wise Park and the timelines that, because it's already been in the budget.
So I know that's
considering bringing
not
it
covered
forward.
here, but we may just, I think it'd just be good to cover off timing wise on that, as if there was a desire to bring that forward, we'd need to talk about it.
We have a paper coming up in the next cycle of papers, which is the Parks and Reserves Work Programme, and looking ahead to the LTP and how we realign the Reserves Investment Strategy funding to the LTP, and that'll recommend a few changes, one of which we bringing that project forward, and Council will get to make the decision at that point.
So that decision, when would that decision be made, sorry? So in the next cycle of meetings?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, moving, any other questions on those items? Councillor Edwards?
I'm not sure when it's the appropriate time. Do we get a chance to talk about the appendices to this report, and in particular fees and charges? Is that some way ahead? Am I jumping ahead?
Yeah, no, that's later. Yep. Okay, we're Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, just looking page 21, item number 14, network resilience, Eastern Hut Road. Is there any sort of risk through delaying work? My understanding was the northern part of the Eastern Hut Road past Stokes Valley was a priority. I know we've got some budget there to do something, but we're carrying over a significant amount of money. Is there any risk to delaying it?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Councillor. So the area below the road, the site, the main site, which is partially slipping, that's the highest priority site. Not at imminent risk, but that is one that as soon as we've got the funding decision from Waka Kotahi in the next 2 weeks, we'll be looking to progress. So should that funding not come through, we'll be coming back to council with where we're at and what sites we would suggest that we progress with. So, yeah.
And so there's a possibility it will still be dealt with in this year?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, very unlikely that the construction will be finished because we need to go out and procure. So procurement and final design. So that'll be something that we will need to weigh up when we're looking at the schedule of works across the city. But it needs to be done. That site in particular would be looking to do before the major Riverlink works start, when disruption will increase.
Councillor Mitchell.
Just as a follow-up, John, what's the approach if NZTA don't come through with the amount of subsidy we've asked for? Will we be doing less, reducing our budget, our work plan accordingly, or will we be looking to rephase and reshuffle within our wider program?
Through the chair, we'd be looking to rephase, but that one particular site we'd be recommending that to council that progresses first, and then with the second site once we've got final costs for the first one. So what we can do with the money we have.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll now move through to the noting recommendation on the rates revenue increase. So what obviously has been proposed here for this coming financial year is a 0.2% reduction once we had worked, or the team had worked through everything. Now we can, that is just a noting rec, I suppose, at this point in time, but is Councillor Mitchell?
I assume that's based, I think it usually is, on today's recommendations being taken on board.
That's correct, yeah.
So, correct, and if there's any further decisions at the meeting next week, then that rates increase would potentially change. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move through to we're approving the targeted rates for wastewater and water supply, and that is on table 8. Happy with that? Yep. Okay. Page 36. Okay. Okay, next one is page 36 as well, which is around the refuse, recycling and green waste. Any questions on that, or we can give that a tick? Yep, okay. Fees and charges. Now, Councillor Edwards, I know you had a query.
Yeah, to signal that I'm not in favour at this stage. I'd love to hear other councillors' view on it, of the 50-cent increase in parking fees, but obviously that has revenue implications, and I'm not sure we've had any information on if we kept fees where they are at $3 an hour, what budget ramifications they have. And I'm just wondering whether we could get that information and leave that particular item to the June meeting.
Yeah, I think given the feedback we had in the submissions, that would be appropriate. Is there anything else members would like to come back for that June the 4th meeting for consideration around paid parking? Councillor Parkin?
Kia ora, likewise, and I've been having a chat to officers about the practicality of whether or not we can actually implement a 30-minute or 1 hour free in Petonia, and obviously there's financial implications around that as well, and conversations that probably need to happen with the community and businesses.
Okay. Any other thoughts around that? And we will then ask John maybe just to provide some reflections of what's possible for the 4th of June, just around timeframes of what you can get to us. Councillor Briggs, Councillor Mitchell.
Just understanding what projects would probably slip and be rephased if we were to lose that income, which is predicted as well, just so we can kind of understand the implications to our transport network as a result.
Councillor Mitchell, sorry, was that in regards to parking? If you
Correct, with the parking, just an understanding of which projects would need to be rephased if we don't have that income that's predicted.
So rephase delayed, or obviously a rates increase.
Yep.
So it would be the, yeah. Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I don't think we've had a thorough report yet of how the system's been working down in Petone in terms of revenue. It sounded like maybe Community Board had information that we haven't had, but if that could be included in the next paper as well, what the performance to date on that system has been. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Stallinger.
Yeah, thanks. Just on the same theme, there was discussion around statistics and how useful they are, and things are included in the retail spend that we've seen, and some are not. So just a kind of summary from the officer's understanding, which we can readily see, what impact that might possibly have. When I was reading through, I think the information was kind of there, but just having that summarised in this report, I think would be helpful as well if we're reconsidering some things a bit later in the month or next month.
Yep. Yeah, I think basically, given the data conversation, just the best possible information we have, knowing that we're not going to be able to, you're not going to have something that gives you crystal clear vision of what's going on.
We can do that. I mean, I think it is regional spend data because as you've all indicated, there can be all sorts of reasons as to what's happening in the economy right now. So we can put that for you succinctly, but as Councillor Parkin picked up earlier, that in essence, you're kind of going, what can we compare apples with apples, both here and across the region?
Councillor Stallinger?
Just to be clear, I'm not asking for any extra work though, just so that's crystal clear. It's just what type of spend is excluded from the data we've had, if you were to take the total picture, just if that was refreshed on our memories for there as well. Because to me, looking at the data, it looked to capture most of the relevant spend, not online spend, and I was taking the view it was quite useful data for our decision making because of that. But I just heard some different views, so a reflection on that.
Yeah, we can sort that. And of course, there's all sorts of retail information at the moment around how the nature, and we heard it today, how the nature of business is changing for particularly some highly discretionary spend, sort of high-end stuff from in-person to online. So we can explain the data on which, the basis on which the data's there. And you said the magic words, Councillor Stallinger. I'm not asking people to do lots more work. So thank you.
Anything else on paid parking? Okay, John, do you just want to respond to that and any other thoughts you've got?
Thank you, Chair. Just on the most recent point first, we will put this in the next paper, but the data excludes cash transactions, online purchases, and invoiced purchases. So it's everything else. We'll add that up in the paper. So in terms of any changes, possible changes to parking, so any change we make will result in an increase in the rates, and we'll need to work with Jenny's team on what that looks like. So 350 down to 3 will have an impact. First hour free will have an impact as well, but we can't quantify that yet. So that'll be at the next meeting when we come back, which also will have some other parking changes you have requested to review. That'll be back at the next meeting. So yeah, that is any changes will have an impact. So that's, but we'll come back with the direction that you provide.
I think just in addition to that, John, kind of to Councillor Briggs's point, that if also, obviously, if you were to reduce that revenue, if you were to then say correlate that to the transport spend that it goes towards, rather than on the rates, just those options as well, just so we've got the full suite of information. Yeah. Okay. Happy with that? Anything else from the fees and charges schedule? No? Okay, so now we will go to the recommendations, which we can put back on the screen, or do we need a little bit of time to finalise those? Yep, so we'll just take 2 minutes, so talk amongst yourselves, and we'll come back with those final recs. Okay, we're good to go. I've got one question, just for clarification from the room. With the 50-cent increase on paid parking, are we asking the team to come back with what that looks like if we weren't to introduce that 50 cents just for Jackson Street, or is that for the whole city? Both, okay. So, Councillor Edwards?
This is only my opinion. I was just saying to John, by sparking this, I didn't want to put officers to what is turning into a mammoth report that they'd have to, if they're going to start considering first hour free, Petone, what does Petone want in terms of jigging around with the arrangements down there? What are the ramifications for CBD? If you did that down on Petone, to me, that's a much bigger issue. When I had made the comment, I was just interested to find out if we didn't go ahead with $3 to $3.50, what would be the estimated budget impact? Because my reasoning was that we had a 33% increase in parking fees across the city last year, and now we're going out with another quite substantial increase. I'm all for increasing fees with inflation, but these are some big jumps. I didn't want to put officers to having to come up with what is, I think, a much bigger exercise that I would have thought we could leave till later in the year.
I suppose the feeling I'm getting from the room, though, is that they would like to consider this based on the submissions and feedback we've had. Is that, or are people agreeing with Simon? Because I certainly wouldn't want the team to go away and do a whole heap of work they don't need to do. Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Parkin?
Yeah, I kind of sat at the same place as Simon on this. It was quite simple. What would be the rates impact if we didn't do the increase this year? Looking at it for just Petone or across the city, if that's easy enough to split it two ways, it's fairly simple. I think I feel like we had exhaustive discussions last year about options for half hour free, first hour free. We've heard many more suggestions from the Petone community and an offer to work with us to try and find something. I feel like that part of it would take a lot longer than coming back, to the next meeting with some very simple figures of this is the budget impact of not increasing it everywhere or not increasing it in Petone only. That's fairly simple. I think the other stuff actually deserves time to be spent on it and needs time to be spent on it.
Okay. I'm probably asking Councillor Parkin here. I know that you raised the desire to sort of look at the first hour free or first half an hour free.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm hitting the mute button too. Through you, Chair, I think Councillor Mitchell has some really good points there. It really depends on how big a job it is going to be, and if it is something that is going to be a large job that we actually need to spend more time consulting on, then we need to do that. But we did say that we would review and see how the parking charges were affecting Petone, and I think that's something we do need to delve further into. Timeframe wise, I'm happy to be given a bit of a steer by officers as to what we have capacity and where fits best.
Yep.
As councillors have indicated, you did litigate this and litigate it quite significantly last year in relation to that. You will have the joy of an LTP amendment in the future for water. As and when you come to that time, that might be an option to deal with any wider issues if you simply focus on the issues that Councillor Edwards and Councillor Mitchell have indicated for now, given what we have to do between now and June. That's helpful.
Yep. Okay, so just for clarity, based on Councillor Edwards, Councillor Mitchell's sort of clarification, it will purely be looking at the 50-cent charge, and if we weren't to introduce that, the rates impact or transport impact, and it will come back with across the city or Jackson Street only. Yep. Happy with that? John, clear? Great. Okay. And that other piece of work will come through later on as well. There'll be an option for that. Council can give some direction for that. Okay, so we'll pull up the regs. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so going through the recs, first to a simple noting, agrees to the budget matters in table 2, 3 and 4. noting. So this is noting the rates increase. Obviously, at the June meeting, there will be our vote, but this is noting where it's currently landing. Obviously, further advice will come back around that, based on any final decisions we make. Okay, approving the wastewater and water supply. Yep. Happy with that wording on 11. Team know what they're doing. That's fine. And delegate to the working group. Now, is there any further on that recommendation 13, anything else? This is the sort of catch-all, anything you felt like hasn't been covered in the papers that you would like to see come back within reason at our next meeting? Councillor Parkin.
Just a quick note on the EV charges, that doesn't seem to be keeping up with our maximum EV charge per minute rate. It doesn't seem to be keeping up with national standards, so I don't know if we need to, we don't necessarily need to increase them, but we probably do need to increase the capacity for officers to increase them later.
We'll take that one offline if that's okay, just to see where that's best placed to look at. Okay, anything else? No? Okay, so I will move recommendations 1 through to 13. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Briggs. Any discussion? Councillor Stallinger.
Just to quickly state, I intend to support these recommendations. I had a good think about it, given my somewhat fundamental concerns I expressed during the draft. I still actually have those concerns, but looking at what we're specifically approving today, I'm comfortable with that. I know we are effectively signing off a few specifics, but I may unlikely to vote a little bit differently and give my reasons more fully again, just at the final vote, rather than repeating them ad nauseum every time we're around this table debating the matters. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other debate, discussion? Councillor Edwards.
Look, councillors are obviously free to vote the way they will when we have make this decision in June. I'm very pleased to hear Councillor Stallinger say, and based on past performance, he will do this. He will give his reasons if he decides in June to vote against the rate increase that's being envisaged. But for me, it will be very disappointing if we get to June, having done all of this work, if we find some councillors, given that it's an election year, voting against the increase, having not in any previous meeting raised with officers any other ideas they have for getting that rates increase down, or asking them information that could enable us to explore avenues to get that rate increase down. Because that kind of voting for me, without having, given some reasons and some good reasons, is pure politicking, and it drives me up the wall.
Any other comment? Councillor Tupou.
Just to say, Mr. Mayor, that this is a challenging time for our communities. And we know that we live with them and among them. And so it's a real challenge for us to balance the high expectations that come through the resident survey, satisfaction surveys, etc., which express very high expectations for top quality services up against the economic climate. So I think that the question I'll be asking myself is, have we done the utmost? And it'll never be perfect, but at the end of the day, we do represent our constituents and yes, we've got some feedback here. Disappointing, it's only a couple of hundred or so. It was a light touch consultation, but we have to make do with what we've got. So I'll proceed on that note.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very, very quickly, and that is I take offence at the wording of politicking, because I've right through said I will vote against a rates increase, and I will be sticking to that, sticking to my thoughts and to why the community voted me in at the time as they did. I just want to leave it at that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Dyer.
Thank you. I acknowledge the council's position and the tricky place we are in, and do want to acknowledge the incredible job that our staff have done to find the savings that we've got in there. I understand that costs are rising across the board, and we've already had to make some really tough calls to get down to 12.6 from where we started probably about a year ago. But I've been listening to people's concerns through our consultation process and while out on the streets talking with people, and the message has been loud and clear that the rates increase is too high and people cannot afford it right now. And after taking on board the public feedback, I'd like to see us aiming for a single-digit increase. I urge officers to see if there's anything further we can do to reduce this increase, but I do acknowledge that the ship has sailed and that trying to find any big cuts this late in the piece might be challenging. The final annual plan already has us not meeting our balanced budget requirement, so I would argue that we could make an argument to reduce the funding for our Three Waters depreciation on those assets, noting that depreciation pays for the future renewal of these assets that in 12 months' time will not be our assets to fund in the future. They will likely be funded through a new water organisation under the new local water done well. So for me, we've got 12 months to reform. That's inevitably coming. It's the perfect chance for a future council to really take a hard look at the finances, go through everything line by line. Reform is fundamentally going to change the playing field for the financial landscape for our council, and there's a real opportunity to refocus the budget because the level of rates signalled in this plan is not sustainable. There's also a perfect time to revisit the rates differential between what was set over a decade ago. We may well land in the same place that we are now with the 60-40 split, but I think it is time for us to have an open and transparent process alongside our business community, alongside the residents, and just be really open about that. The 60-40 split now was based on a spreadsheet 10 years ago. And at the same time, we need to continually put on the pressure to the government to signal for new funding tools. Just letting the councils retain the GST that gets charged on rates would have a significant impact on our rates. Further to this, we need to stop these government's unfunded mandates. Today, we have signalled off just 2 of them. So thank you to everyone who presented to us today, everyone that took the time to take part in our consultation, and everyone I've spoken to over the last few months. But the message has been loud and clear that this rates increase is too high, and that's why I'll be voting against it.
Okay, any other comment? Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sit in a very similar view to Councillor Edwards, and I thank you, Councillor, for your remarks. I do find it frustrating when we go through this process in good faith as colleagues and on behalf of our community, as Councillor Tupou stated, that we're here on behalf of our community. And I think our community are very smart, they're very wise, and they can see what we do, and we should hold ourselves to the highest degree possible. Councillor Dyer, I hear your intent not to vote for the rates increase and wish to have a 2.6% reduction between now and June at our next meeting from officers, but that's unrealistic. The points that you spoke to are all future. This is an annual plan that's potentially in the next council or the next long-term plan, but to actually even set expectations of a significant change, both you and I know, and we all know in this room, that's not going to happen. We've already done a line-by-line review. This council's been extremely prudent, and we have done that every single year, looking at cost savings, how we can rephase, how we can spend and invest our ratepayers' money wisely. Every year that I've been involved in local government, there's always people that will say we cannot afford the rates. The rates are too expensive. I've never made the promise to keep rates low or to not increase rates because it's unrealistic. The promise that I've always made is to invest rates money wisely, to make good decisions, and good governance just comes down to us to make the right decisions of what we know, and to expect anything less than what we're giving today without any solutions for this annual plan is unrealistic. So I hope that between now and our next meeting, there's a bit of reflection around what's needed for our community. We make good governance decisions rather than promises of the future when we're currently in an annual plan process.
Councillor Brown.
I just briefly want to touch on that I'm supporting the developer contribution at the minute. But in that discussion, some speakers came forward to talk about and mention rates differential. I just want to reconfirm that and acknowledge that businesses are doing really difficult at the moment. So are residents. Residents are doing it really difficult, and we know how difficult that is when our food banks have exploded. And the food banks are telling us that these are working people as well as people who are not working or who have suddenly lost their jobs, and that's a big group of lower hut people. And when we've been in rockstar communities, it isn't always the case that the residents benefit from that either. So I just want to signal that in supporting the developer contribution, it's a very different issue to the rates differential.
Okay. Any final comment? No? Okay. I will put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
By division, please.
Division. Okay. Let's go back to the recs we've got. Okay. If we can just pull them up, because we wanting to do all of them as by division, or like
Take them all as one by division would be the request.
one by
Take
all of them as one. Okay. Okay. Well, that's a bit easier then. Okay, so all those in favour say aye. Those against no. Okay. We will need to do a proper division. Yeah.
So, for or against the recommendations as printed, Mayor Barry,
Aye.
Councillor Barrett, Councillor Briggs,
aye.
Councillor Brown, Councillor Dyer,
No.
Councillor Edwards,
Aye.
Councillor Mitchell,
For.
Councillor Morgan, Councillor Parkin,
Aye.
Councillor Shaw,
Aye.
Councillor Stallinger, Councillor Tupou.
Aye.
With 2 against and the remainder for, there's a carried, Mr Mayor.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Now, just give me a second. Okay. We're now down to item 6, which is questions. We've received no questions, and we will be moving straight into council, so I won't do our closing karakia, but I declare this meeting closed at 1:43 p.m. Welcome to this meeting of the council on the 16th of May. We will now move straight through to apologies, and it will just move Deputy Mayor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Barrett. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. No public comment. Conflict of interest declarations, noting the same conflicts that were declared in the last meeting. We'll now move through to item 5, which is basically everything that we have just signed off on the previous paper. So I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Briggs. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Moving through now to our closing karakia. Please feel free to join me. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia e te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia mama, tēnā kau, tia tina, tia wairua e te arataka tū. Koia ria rongo whakeeri, aki, kia ronga, kia wātia, ora, ku wātia, hau, pamaria. And I declare council meeting closed at 1:44 p.m. Thank you, everyone.